and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 8 of the SimRacing Expo podcast with me and Danny. Danny, you beautiful, beautiful man. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, man. I slept long. Today is actually a bank holiday in Germany.
I feel
But
bad now.
that's
Sorry.
no. Our podcast is like the first thing on my schedule for everything. It's just the perfect way to start the day. For reference, it's 13 o'clock.
Yeah, you woke up a little bit late, didn't we,
Yeah.
this morning,
Yeah.
Danny? Had a couple of beers last night.
It was wine. I was out with my girlfriend, so it was wine. But yeah, same effect.
Well, at least you have fun, mate, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
But, you know, you get to speak to me for a brief moment, so that's always a good thing for a bank holiday. But there's many things that we need to discuss about sim racing. Of course, everyone's seen the title today. We have got Sebastian Job on the broadcast today, or the podcast, which is fantastic. One of the best sim racers of all time, and he's still in his absolute peak right now. But before we get involved with talking to Sebastian, what has been going on in sim racing?
Oh, that's very hard actually to put out or pinpoint it, because there was so much stuff going on in the last weeks. Pimax invested 2.5 million into Le Mans Ultimate. For reference, if nobody knows what Pimax is, they make actually one of the most advanced VR headsets. Project Motor Racing popped off and is here right now, and you can already pre-order it. And supposedly, it is coming already in September as a full version, no early access, which is crazy. Yeah, today also I woke up and checked LinkedIn, and it's obviously the 25 years anniversary of Team Redline, which is crazy. Also shows how long sim racing or competitive sim racing is around. Never had the impression that because Team Redline is like 25 years already old. Micha, our business developer, came back from USA, but we can't talk right now about it because the meeting for that is afterwards, after the podcast. But I guess we will have an episode talking about that in the future. And yeah.
Yeah, no, we will. We will
you?
talk about the latest of the Sim Expo in a couple of episodes. We'll try and make it for episode 10. So we're on episode 8 right now.
Yeah.
So episode 10, keep your eye out on that. It'll be a chat between me, Danny, and Misha, maybe a couple of more people. But we'll be discussing, you know, anything that we can maybe announce, or, you know, the state of the Expo heading to Dortmund in October, which is a lot more ahead of schedule than it was last year. I can tell you that right now, because last year was a massive panic, and this year, well, there's no one panicking yet. So we're okay. Yet, yeah. Let's start with Team Redline. 25 years of Team Redline. So most of the top sim racers in the world right now weren't really born when Team Redline started.
Yeah, that's totally crazy.
That's crazy to me. I have been aware of Team Redline for, you know, over 10 years, but not the full 25 years, of course. The most famous acquisition was when Max Verstappen got involved. I guess that's been now 7 years, maybe. And, you know, he was being coached by Atze Kirchhoff. Atze then got him involved, and obviously, you know, the Team Redline wouldn't be the Team Redline today without that decision being made. But what are your fondest memories of Team Redline over the years?
I think the most standout moment was actually when there was this kind of overtake from Verstappen in Spa, around of Blanchimont. And then the video popped up where Atze and Max actually trained that on iRacing. That was crazy. I think that was the first big exclamation mark for sim racing and how important it can be. And I think I raced against Team Redline drivers back in 2004 or something like on LFS, but I was not aware that it was like Team Redline, you know. And obviously I met Gregor Hutu, which is, besides Martin Krünke, one of the most famous F1 iRacing drivers that ever been on the service. But I think most of people today don't know even who's Martin Krünke or Gregor Hutu. But this was like, Senna and Prost relationship. Amazing races back then. So it's quite dated already, my knowledge about that.
I think those two were the first household names of sim racing, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how big sim racing is in terms of its fandom and how many people are taking part, like there is a niche, there is a group of us that when they see a certain name in a lobby, like, oh, this is going to be tough. We know
Yeah.
that guy, and Gregor Hutu and Martin Cronker would be those two names back in the day. The likes of Kevin Siggy, Luke Bennett of Redline now, Chris Lullum. If you see their name in a lobby, you're like, oh god, why?
Oh God.
Enzo Benito, which is Enzo's kind of the bridge between the old era and the new era a little
Yeah,
bit
exactly.
as well. So
yeah.
it's those were the sort of first household names. So Gregor Hutu being again a household name within sim racing is probably one of my highlights. But for me personally, it's my 2-year anniversary actually, as well as it being 25 years.
Oh, yeah,
Redline
cool.
for working with them would be the Nürburgring 24 last year, where we hit 28,000 viewers. It was growing, and my PC blew up, but it was like probably over the course of 24 hours we averaged 18,000 viewers throughout the whole 24-hour or 25-hour stream, which is the biggest sim racing stream of all time. Like there's nothing that's ever, maybe we could break that in the future, but nothing's come near that before and hasn't since. So yeah.
What I want to add actually, because most people in the industry are always talking about average viewers, right? And consistent average viewers. But what most important actually is the unique viewers. And probably if you have like 20 or 18,000 average viewers, you have 100, 150, 200,000 unique viewers, which is mind blowing to be honest. If you think about it, like some TV shows don't have that many viewers actually.
No.
And they're running on TV, national TV.
Yeah, but our unique
crazy.
viewers was 450,000, so it
was.
So, can you imagine that many people in one place?
There's no stadium in the world where you can fit them.
No, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
It was the most ridiculous. Like it'd be my biggest regret that my PC couldn't handle it, because I don't know what number we would have got to, but it was like the perfect concoction, because the Red Bull was super quick. Max was super quick as well, obviously, he still is. And he was racing at Imola, and plus we had him racing in the 24, and they were super quick that weekend. So he won the GP, he won the race at the Nürburgring. It's just like the perfect concoction. All of the media kind of got wind of it, and I actually got approached by ESPN Germany. No, Sky Germany, Sky Italy, Sky Germany, ESPN contacted us during the stream to try and get an interview. And I'm like, we're too busy. There's so many
We're doing our own stuff here, right?
It was just wild.
Join our stream for the interview, please.
So that's my highlight. And the work they put in to put the rig together in his motorhome and stuff was like, it was so touch and go. You have no idea. But yeah, that was and Redline. They keep pushing the boundaries, right, and keep helping to grow sim racing. Without them,
Chris had his first race.
Yes.
Sorry for the viewers that don't know. Chris Lullum is now racing from sim racing actually to real life. Last year he won Radical Series in the UK, right?
UK Radical Cup, yeah.
Amazing achievement already. And now for the first race of the SRO GT World Challenge Europe, he went second with his teammates in the gold category, which is actually mind-blowing, because gold is already not too bad. It's already a pro driver with 2 amateurs, I think. So yeah, outstanding.
And they could have won if they didn't have contact with a McLaren. So Chris's first race, he had a McLaren went into the back of him, and he thought he had a serious issue. So for a good 10 laps, he was psychologically not being through his process. So he slowed down and looked after the car, and they actually finished 10 seconds behind the winners. So they could have actually won on the debut, but they did. They managed to get a podium.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy birthday, Team Redline. Probably the best way of doing it. We haven't got any party hats or poppers, but yeah, congratulations. And we'll be speaking to Sebastian Job, who's managed by Team Redline, very shortly. Right, let's move on to Pimax, who have again put $2.5 million into Le Mans Ultimate. For me personally, I would love to see that money be put or invested into an esports competition. I guess it partners very well with Team Redline. I want to be able to do some watch parties of an endurance championship. Like what I would love is iRacing to actually make a championship with all of their special events, but that's just not happening. We know that's not going to happen.
No,
so
certainly not.
We need like a Le Mans, a virtual Le Mans like we had in 2020. When's the last time we had that? 2022? 2022 would have been, right?
Yes, 2022, because 2023 was already Motorsport Games going down. On the stock exchange and so on, and then I think they already stopped that.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how much money they need to to keep the game going, or whether that money is going to be used to invest in potentially for an esports championship. But Le Mans Virtual may be the best esports competition ever, I believe,
Yeah.
because every team had to have a professional driver. You know, obviously there were some loopholes in that, and you know, if that was the same rules now, you just have Chris Lullum as your professional race driver, which is not
Yeah,
working.
exactly.
But like, yeah, it was. You had like Luke Browning was racing in it, like Ayrton Guven. You know, all of these big dogs were from the real world were racing in sim racing, and it was a fantastic championship. You can't knock it, apart from a few connection issues, which are well documented.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but that, you know, that's sim racing. It's similar to an engine blowout in real life, right? But yeah, I hope that's maybe the case.
Virtual
But I
more
think that
should
might be
return.
more wishful thinking from my side.
But I really like. So I participated actually in Virtual Le Mans. Wasn't the best entry because I'm not going well with Factor 2 engine. But thinking about, like, I overtook Charles Leclerc, and there's like a Twitch clip where he's asking who's the chooser guy. Is he like an esports driver, racing driver? I don't know him. And these kind of memories, I mean, beside of the competition, it's like once in a lifetime experience. And for every sim racer who has the opportunity to do Virtual Le Mans, is like mind blowing. And for everyone, I really hope who can participate that they have the chance. And yeah, would be great to see it, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, sim racing is the great leveler, isn't it? It doesn't matter what color or creed or how much money you've got or any of that bollocks. It's, you know, if you've got a sim rig or you've got a subscription to a service, you could end up racing against someone who is potentially a 4-time world champion. You know, you never know.
You never know. Exactly.
To have that come back would be pretty cool. Again, just speculating. I have no information, so if this gets clipped up, and people are like, "Oh, they said Le Mans Virtual's coming back." Well, we haven't said that. But wishful thinking.
No. I think it's wishful thinking, but in general, I think the Pimax is. Some people, so it's a Chinese company, and people have the impression it's a quite small company, but it isn't. They were on the CES this year, and CES is the biggest consumer electrics exhibition in the world. It's actually so expensive that some of the biggest players in the world are not going there anymore. And they had a booth there showing, I think, LMU and iRacing, and actually even Linus Tech Tips was checking out their booth and had a run on the simulator and so on. So I think they're very, very strong in the backing, and potentially besides of these religious, my sim is better than your stuff, it would be great to have one sim which is like perfectly programmed for VR. And if that's going to be LMU, fine, it would be amazing. And I think with the power of Pimax behind them, that could be a potential future for LMU, actually. And that would be amazing.
Absolutely. Right, moving on to the final bit of sim racing news. And so Project Motor Racing, the pre-order went up 2 days ago. Again, we are on the 1st of May right now, so it would have been the 28th of April or 29th of April, one of those days. It was a couple of days ago. And then people have kind of found a release date. This is, again, not information we know. We can only go based off what we read on the internet, and we all know that the internet's always correct. But late September. And do you know what? When Project Cars used to release, it always used to be late September. So that's good information from me. As soon as I read the 29th of September, I was like, okay, that could be good. I think that might be the right sort of information. They tend to release I'm not again. I'm very biased here because it says project in the racing title, so I don't want to get it confused. It's not deemed to be Project Cars 3 or anything like that. But I'm so excited that we might get a game that is the successor to Project Cars 2 in my mind.
Look, stop for a second.
I'm so excited
because I know your history, but you need to reflect now your history of Project Motor Racing or Project Cars for the listeners, because they don't know that what you have done in the past for the game.
Well, I competed on it many years ago.
Dude, competing is such a small part what you did. You're actually on the front menu of the game.
Yeah, well, that's true. In Project Cars 2, I was on the esports menu because I commentated on all of their world championships for Project Cars. So I commentated for ESL. Basically, I competed on Sunday Go for Cups, they were called. So it's like 50 euros, 100 euros every Sunday, like a knockout format. It was really cool. And it lasted for like 3 years. I at one point, I just like, look, maybe I should, because I was good enough to get to the finals, but I was never good enough to win. Like I managed to get a couple of podiums, but I never was good enough to win. So I was like, can I make this bigger? Can we get more people interested in this by someone commentating on it? And I'd never commentated, so I was like, oh, do you know what? I'll give it a go. So I contacted ESL and said, look, if you don't mind, I'll host all of the races and I'll stream them. And so we did, and it grew quite popular. Likes, if you see the likes of Giardier out there now, James Baldwin, these drivers come from that esport. Like that's where they were competing back in the day. And to get to watch them compete, and obviously at one point Jaroslav Honzik had to make a decision. Do I compete or am I going to be a content creator? He's kind of still doing both a little bit, but his content creation has taken precedent. You see James Baldwin's doing both. He's racing real cars as well. Yeah. And they gave me the SMSR World Championship, which is a month before the Project Cars 2 came out. So I went to Gamescom, got to commentate. It's the first time I ever got paid as well, was the actual World Final. So I did like 2 years of ESL stuff, never got paid for it. And then I finally got paid, and I paid for my first ever PC, and then took commentary a bit more seriously. And basically Project Cars was what started everything for me in this career. I wouldn't be working within sim racing without that. So again, I'm very biased. I'm very excited that there is that potential game, because it's a game that's based on like the era before the new GT3s. It's got like a 2016-17 GT3s from what I've seen from the release video, and it's got some LMDH, but LMDH are just throwing everything. They're trying to get the license in every game at the moment, so you expect that to be in there anyway. But there'll be some historic tracks, I'm sure. But there's historic cars, GT1s, and all sorts. So look, I just hope that we have something that is decent, that is on 3 different platforms. It's going to be on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Where a community can grow. And I go back. Sounds like I love sim racing being crazy right now. It's like the biggest it's ever been. But I miss the simpler times, and maybe this is the game for that. And I don't know. I'm again just being biased.
First of all, I think, which is most importantly, especially in this kind of my sim is better than your stuff, it doesn't matter, to be honest, because there are so many people actually coming from SimK titles to real sim titles like iRacing, LMU, name it.
Well, let's talk about sim races in general. So the best driver right now.
Just give me a second.
Sorry.
Just give me a second. Just one more second. And people underestimate how important these titles are, like SimK titles, like Forza, Gran Turismo. People are gonna stone me right now that I say Gran Turismo is a SimK title, and potentially Project Motor Racing. And when you see the car list, they have sports cars from the 70s, GT cars from 2004 and 5. And then the LMP cars. So basically, guys, not GTP, LMP. When the Audi R8 was the thing, and not the Audi R8 GT3, there was an LMP car of that. And the Panos LMP1, which was obviously and undoubtedly, in your opinion is not counting, the most beautiful racing car in the whole history. And that's all the simpler times when we had cars without ABS, without traction control, sequential shifting, and raw power. And I'm looking so much forward to this, because the iRacing, I have the highest rating system, I'm the fastest one, is nice. It's awesome. But driving for the sake of driving and listening to the cars is more amazing than everything else.
No, I agree.
So,
100%.
I'm sorry with my I'm done.
Variety is the spice of life, man. Like if we have 4 or 5 different options, that means that everybody has to elevate their game to become better, because they have to stand out from the crowd. So there's that is something that I find baffling in the sim racing world. There's people out there that wish that certain games fail and all this. It's just like,
that's so stupid, to be honest.
Why? You want them to do well, so then your favorite game will get better naturally. Because if they don't, they will not thrive. It's really, it's adapt or die, effectively. So yeah, it is what it is. Right. Anyway, that's me and you done. Danny, you got anything else you want to mention?
Yeah. No. Thank you very much. I think also to say something about the podcast in general currently with the SimRacer Expo. Thank you to everyone who's actually listening to the podcast, or signing up for our newsletter, which is once monthly, because we don't want to spam the people with annoying newsletters each week. And also social medias are blowing up again. We really try to make the best out of the expo, catering to everyone who loves sim racing. And I'm very happy since I have the position of communication to maintain and audit the grow and have the podcast with you, which is always looking forward when we can record something. And yeah, thank you very much for everyone who's tuning in. And yeah.
Well, very much appreciated there, Danny. Right, without further ado, let's head to our guest today then. He is a four-time PEC GB champion, and that's esports, that's Porsche Cup on the GP circuits or in the GP with the great British drivers. Of course, he is a team champion on Rennsport, and he is a two-time PESC Esports champion. Oh, we have got Oracle
Crazy
Red Bull
achievements.
SimRacing driver, Sebastian Job. And as if by magic, here he is, Sebastian Job. Mate, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Cheers for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm alright. Not too bad. Had a busy weekend, but yeah, it's always nice to, have a busy weekend and then sort of go into a week. And my first job really is to have a podcast with you, with someone I get on really well. So it should be good fun. First of all, for anyone in the sim racing world who has been living under a rock and they don't know who you are, it'd be a good idea for you to give a little intro about yourself.
Yep. So my name is Sebastian. I've been racing in sim racing for 12 years now. I started when I was 13, now 25. Feeling old. I've been competing at the top level, let's say, technically since 2014-15, but a bit on and off. The last 5 or 6 years is where I've really been doing it professionally, competing in mainly on iRacing, but also F1 Esports, ESLR1 on Rennsport, and I did occasional competitions on a Seto course as well a few years ago, but mainly iRacing. That's where people mostly know me from, and I'm also, of course, part of Oracle Red Bull SimRacing, and had the pleasure of being put into an F1 car at the end of last year, and we made a documentary about it called Game to Glory 2, and it was just the most amazing thing ever, kind of groundbreaking in a sim racing sense, because you have lots of sim racers go from, oh, can a sim racer drive in a real car? We already know they can, but we stepped it up and did it with an F1 car, and it went really well. So that's basically who I am.
So you completed life. Where'd you go from there? Like you've just, you've done everything that you possibly can. Drive a Formula One car. Where'd you go? Like it's pretty much you've done it.
Yeah, I can certainly like in 50 years from now, I'll still be able to say I've driven an F1 car, which is pretty awesome. But I got into sim racing for one reason, and that was because I couldn't afford to race in real life. So for me, the goal is still race consistently in real life. Not just a test day here and there, but an actual series. With Red Bull, we are working on that. We're trying to get the funding to race in Carrera Cup next year. Seeing as I've done the virtual Carrera Cup many years now, and being the reigning champion, it would be quite cool to then race in the exact same real life series. I don't think anyone's ever done that before. Certainly not won both before. So yeah, that's where I go next, hopefully.
Wow, that's a lot of information there, Sebi. You've just told everyone you're going to win the GB Carrera Cup. Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna try.
Let's go all the way back to the start then, right? So you just mentioned 2014, 15. In my head, that was, a few months ago, but it wasn't. It was 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago now. And you just mentioned that you sort of, wanted to become a real racing driver but couldn't afford it, which is a story for, well, I say a lot of people, most people, maybe 99.9% of people find themselves in that situation. What made you fall in love with motorsport, and what was the first game you picked up to go, do you know what, I'm going to probably have to transition into sim racing here, maybe that's my entry?
First game I think was F1 2006 on the little PSP, hand sized, and I would drive around on like full assists on that, like basically just holding the throttle button and steering. I didn't brake, but eventually I got a bit better at it, and then it was Toca Racing Driver.
Oh,
I
yes.
don't know which one. And I distinctly remember playing it with my cousins around Brands Hatch. I don't know what car. That's like the only memory I have of that game for some reason. But yeah, loved that. I know I loved the game, but I don't remember much of it. And then it would have been Gran Turismo, I think. Those were like the three that I played that kind of got me into racing, alongside watching F1, as everyone does when they're younger. At least anyone that does racing now. Yeah, and then I did some. So I played rugby when I was younger, even though I don't really have the stature for it.
You're a unit, Sebi,
And
don't worry.
yeah, exactly. But eventually, we did like a team trip to a go-kart track. I think I did quite well. And then a couple years later, I went with a friend to another go-kart track, and someone there said, "Oh, your time is really fast. You should join our go-kart academy." You know, this is the team sport indoor tracks you have in the UK. I'm sure you've been to one.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I signed up for this karting academy at this location. Kept going there for a couple years. Was doing well, relatively, and I wanted to do outdoor karting, or just go up another level, but we just couldn't afford it. Wasn't an option. The jump from, you know, indoor karting to outdoor karting is monumental, let alone to high level outdoor karting. So just wasn't an option. So I looked at sim racing. I started watching videos on iRacing, and as soon as I turned 13, I signed up on my birthday, and that was that. I had a lot of internet issues at first, I remember, for the first few months, and then we fixed it, and all was good.
Oh wow! So you got into iRacing, and how, you know, what was the journey like on iRacing? When did it? I guess the fact that you went on to iRacing because of the karting, you'd already decided you wanted to take it pretty seriously. Had you come across any of their competitions? Because some of their main esports competitions have been going on for years, right? Especially the oval stuff.
Yeah, I remember. I think so. I don't remember exactly where this isn't necessarily competition related, but I think one of the first things I saw was Jimmy Broadbent. He was making videos back then, and it was like a series called like Let's Play iRacing, and I was watching him like go up the licenses, and that made me really want to do the same thing. So that was one of the things that got me into iRacing, is because I found these videos, and then I started to see the iRacing World Championship, which was Gregor Hutu winning it back then. And I was like, oh my god, I'm never going to be at that level, but that looks cool. So that was just, oh, that's cool what they're doing, but I don't think I'll ever be that good. And then I signed up for this racing academy within iRacing, which I don't know if there are many like this now, where it was like there was no fees or anything. It was just simply like a community thing. And this guy Jorgen, he just like had everyone in a server and taught us how to drive. And you know, I was multiple seconds off pace at this point, and improved and improved. And kind of went from there. And then in 2014, I think I joined Apex Racing Team, and got into the Pro Series. I think it was like that. And then in 2015, I was in the World Championship, and at that point, I was like, okay, this is weird. I shouldn't be here. There was some serious imposter syndrome. And then I started qualifying higher up the front, and I remember like being really freaked out, like has someone downloaded hacks onto my computer kind of thing. I thought that there's no way I'm actually doing well at something. Not that I was a complete failure in life until that point, but I was like, I'm doing, like I genuinely I'm competing against the best in the world at something. This feels like something I shouldn't be doing. And then
And you're only 15
more
as
time at
well.
the top.
Throw that into the
Yeah,
mix,
yeah. I
right?
was 15 at the time, so it was very like I was the youngest on the grid, by a couple years, I think.
You still don't really hear that
So
now.
yeah,
Even these today, like 15 years old, there's no one that comes to mind that will be competing at that level at the moment. So that's really crazy.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, they have a lot of age limits now because of prize money. as well, which doesn't help. But even still, I think it's quite unusual. So I think Otis Lawrence in F1 is probably the closest thing to that, because he was quick enough to be racing already last year, but he just couldn't because of age. But yeah, it's not common, and yeah, because of that, I was a bit like, bloody hell, what's going on here? And at the same time, I'm still going to school and trying to balance that a bit. I mean, I was hating school at that point, so it was hard for me to do my homework when I wanted to just practice. But yeah, that's kind of how it started, and it was kind of like being thrown into a world of I don't feel like I'm meant to be here, which was a bit strange.
What equipment were you using back then?
It was just simple Logitech GT. It was originally a driving Force GT for the first maybe year, and then I got a G20. It would have been a 27 at the time, because it's now a G29. Oh no, it's now a G920, but it's basically the same thing. It's just like a upgraded model. And it was just clamped onto my dining table, and I'd have the pedals sliding around underneath me. I'd have to try and make them stay still, and be like tightening the clamps on the straight, that
Yeah.
classic. And then 2016, no, 2017, I upgraded to a Fanatec CSO Elite, and I remember thinking that at the time, and I was like, whoa, this is the biggest jump ever. I cannot imagine it. And obviously going to direct drive after that is an even bigger jump. But at the time, I was like, the first couple laps, I was making all these saves that I never knew were possible, and I was like, oh, this makes sim racing so much easier. So I kind of wish I had that for a few years more. But I was in school, I couldn't afford to get that kind of stuff.
No, but 100%. We've all had those early years as well, where it's kind of a bit of a struggle. Sometimes you go to a LAN event and you're like, oh my god, what's this? And then you go home and it's not quite the same, is it again?
Yeah.
But that is the beauty of sim racing, right? The fact that your entry level was with Logitech. When if this world ever explodes, there'll be cockroaches and Logitech wheels, the only thing that will survive. But like, yeah, to have that entry level equipment available then was obviously invaluable, because if it wasn't there, and it was similar to real world racing, right? You couldn't afford the direct drive. You'd have been on the keyboard and control pad, and maybe we never actually see, Sebastian Job racing at the top level in 2025, right?
Yeah, I always say that I think to win a world championship, you probably do need a direct drive, but to win races in a world championship, you can win it on anything. In 2019, I came third in PESC, and that was still with a Fanatec CSL Elite. And what I had was I was still driving on a desk with just a dining chair, and the pedals underneath were, when I pressed the brake, the pedals would like flip completely. So I had to mount them to a massive plank of wood to spread the weight more evenly. And so I had this like really like setup, and I came third in PESC, and I'm pretty sure I won a race or two that season. So absolutely, you can get to the top level on what is not the top level of equipment. It's just, I think, for that last bit of consistency, and especially over a season, you do need the direct drive.
You just mentioned 2019, third PESC. PESC for me is probably the most competitive sim racing series in the world. I'd say Rennsport's up there. I don't think it's been there long enough to sort of put it with PESC yet. Was that the first time you realised there's a living to be made here, or had you realised that before?
No, that probably was, yeah, thinking about it. I'm just thinking, 2019, yeah. I got my first, let's say, salary from sim racing in 2018, I believe. Not much, but 2019, I think that was by far the most prize money I ever got. But I took all the prize money and I just invested it into getting the rig that I'm actually sat in now. So I didn't necessarily make a huge amount from that, but I kind of realized, oh, if Porsche are investing heavily. Maybe other companies are going to be investing heavily. And F1 Esports was, I think, first came around in 2017, so it had been around for a couple of years now. So hence why I was now part of Red Bull. So it was all coming together at that point, and I think that's when things. I never would have expected to be where we are today, but it certainly was like the first sign of things to come. You know, when a big brand like Porsche gets involved, and you have F1 Esports blowing up, and I think NASCAR was having big investments as well, and that they still are. You know, the Coke series is massive now. So yeah, I think that was first sign. And you know, a couple of years back when I won my first prize money in 2015, my parents were finally like, okay, we're starting to get it now. And then when more of this started to happen, I think they were starting to push it even more and be even more supportive.
Yeah, I was literally about to bring your parents up. So in the documentary we drove the Formula One car, we got a little glimpse into your parents, and they do seem very supportive human beings. They're kind of like, oh, you know, Sebi's doing his thing. You know, as long as he's sort of happy, then all is good. Were there any pullbacks on this? Was there, especially with education in the early days? You said you didn't like school. I was very similar. I didn't like school, but you know, your parents are always like, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It's very important for this, very important for that. Which
Yeah.
you know, when you're young, you don't understand how important certain things are. But did you have any issues? Did the relationship with your parents ever suffer because of your dreams and your goals?
We might have had one or two spats of you need to do your homework before you do this next MX5 race. I think that was probably the worst it got. Overall, though, they were so supportive. I think they were a little bit concerned when I was joining, as any protective parent would be. You know, they did the right thing. But when, like in 2014, when I was joining Apex Racing Team, I'm joining a team of grown adults, and they were a bit concerned about that. And I had like we would have a sports psychologist work with us, and I would have private one-on-one sessions with him, and they were all a bit like cautious with it all because they didn't understand any of this. And they just, you know, I was 14, 15, I was still a baby in their eyes, and they were a little bit careful, but luckily they weren't too protective, because maybe I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today if not for that. So overall, extremely, extremely supportive, but at the start they were a little bit apprehensive just because they didn't understand what it was. I didn't really understand what it was, you know, and I never would have expected it to turn out as it did. So it was kind of like, let's slow down a bit here. Why are you joining a racing team? Yeah, like you've only been doing this for a year, and so on. But you know, when they're driving up, so for the Red Bull Ring trip, they drove, I think, for 2 days to get there, because they live in France at the moment, and they weren't sure if they could make it because they have a lot of animals and they couldn't find anyone to look after them. And last minute they managed to find someone to look after them, and they drove for two days to get to Austria, just to come and see it. And I was extremely glad they could. And then for Snetterton, they actually surprised me and showed up, and they said they wouldn't be there, and then they did, which was amazing as well, because Snetterton was the first day of really drive, like first part of the whole documentary. So yeah, extremely supportive, and I think I'm quite lucky. You know, not everyone has parents as supportive as I do, so I think a lot of the success comes down to that as well.
You're a kid, Sebi. I got into sim racing and commentary at 27. Already had my first child. You know, I've been moved out 10 years from my parents' house, and they still struggled with it. Like, what are you doing? You're risking everything to do commentary on gaming cars. Like, oh god. So yeah, when you're a child, you know, 14, 15, you look back now and you realize how, you know, immature we are as 14, 15-year-olds. At that age, you're like, oh, I know everything. So yeah, no, it sounds like they massively had, or they were helping you keep your head screwed on, which was always good. So 2019, you get third, your best performance so far. What is the next step? You obviously pay for a new rig. You know, I guess in your head you're thinking, right, I need to go and be a challenger now. I need to go and win something. So what was your next steps?
It was honestly, I was pretty convinced that the rig would do most of it for me. I was pretty sure of that because most people at that level were already on it. Not even so much the rig, but the direct drive, the like really powerful pedals. I upgraded everything. Um, I think I won something like $11,000, and I spent 7 or 8,000 of it just on my rig, just making sure everything was the absolute best. I wanted no excuses at all for the next season. And then we just practiced so much. I remember for the first round, there was 5 of us working together, and we just completely destroyed the field. There was 5 of us, and we were all in the top 8 in quali. And I was the quickest of us in practice, and yeah, it just went really well, and I managed to win the first race, and I kind of just set the tone for the season. It wasn't all smooth sailing, but for the most part, it went pretty straightforward. I think Max actually crashed me out in round 2 at Barcelona.
He was only a guest driver, right, as well? He'd only done a couple of
Uh,
rounds, I think.
Yeah, he stopped after two or three rounds. I mean, it wasn't really his fault, but I do like to mention it because there was just a massive pile up and happening in front of me, and I pressed the brakes to slow down for it, and he just smashed into the back of me. But I don't think he could have seen it in time. But so yeah, that was the season I won it. So that was yeah, it went really well, honestly. The pace was good all season. I think second half of the year our advantage disappeared. We spent so much time pre-season just maximizing everything that we came out of the blocks like firing, and I built up a bit of a gap in the championship, and then it just stayed where it was. And yeah, that was it. And then the last round at Monza, it was pretty simple because I had a bit of a margin, and Rogers needed to basically win both races, and I needed to do badly. And then in race 1, there was a crash. He got taken out, I think, by me, but again, it was similar with Max, where it wasn't my fault. There was just a
Okay,
crash in
yeah.
front. Yeah, it sounds like it might be, but no, it was a big concertina effect, and yeah, that even though it was a bit of a rubbish way to finalize it, that did seal it, and yeah, and that was that. And I got to celebrate winning my first world championship.
Yeah, no, it's ace. I remember watching it. It was really nice to see you come out on top. And to be fair, there's a rivalry that's continued throughout your career, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel on this situation, but you and Josh Rogers have kind of, whatever you've competed in or won, him or yourself, you've always seemed to be in the same championship, both fighting for it. Even recently with Rennsport, right? In the last couple of years, you've been competing on that. He's a 2-time PESC champion. You're a 2-time PESC champion now. How do you see that rivalry?
Yeah, I agree. It's been a really great rivalry. I don't like it. There's definitely an added edge when it's against Josh. There's probably a few people where it's like that, but he's definitely one of those where I kind of look forward to it because it is always the level is going to be unbelievably high, and you have to be really on it. And it's genuinely been going on since 2019, I think, because it all started when in 2019 in PESC he was rapid, and he won the championship, but he was a bit reckless and he crashed me out a few times, and that kind of started this rivalry. Not that it's like in bad, like there's any
Whoa, don't tell
bad
everyone
heat.
that. No. We need to start these storylines. You hate each other. Like, come on.
Exactly, yeah. But it did start off with that where I was pretty angry with him. But then ever since then we've had a lot of really good battles. Some of the best I've ever had in sim racing, to be honest, where we both left each other like no room at all, but just enough to get 2 cars through the corner. And I really like the rules of racing where you actually leave other cars room. But I know in recent years the ways of driving changes a little bit. But with Josh, I always find we still race in the same way as before, so it's always a really nice battle. And yeah, he's one of the fastest guys out there, so it's basically, if I see him on the grid, I know it's not going to be easy, and that it makes it a lot sweeter when you do win if the competition level is high. So yeah, it's frustrating to sometimes race against him because he's very good, but when you do win, it makes it even better because of the history there, and you're beating one of the best in the world, and it's always the case. So I'm looking forward to some more battles in the future. I'm sure there'll be plenty more. We didn't have many EWC last year because I think Redline as a whole we were just on another level, and then in previous years it's been other ways around, and so it kind of needs the right blend of things where we're both at a similar level to have that battle. But we have had quite a few, and I think a lot of the time the best ones are when one of us is struggling, because that person then fights even harder. Because if you're quicker, you can kind of take your time more, whereas if you're struggling for pace, you're like fighting with everything you have. And if one of us is in that situation, then it leads to some like pretty scrappy but still fair battles. So yeah, looking forward to some more.
Yeah, mate, I love watching the battles. It's just crazy how there seems to be that one driver for at the top end. There's a few drivers that win major championships, and there always seems to be that one driver as their nemesis, and they seem to manage to win races when the everyone's not doing well. The everyone does well, kind of, and it's you two, when all is said and done, I think it will be the most important part of your career will be that you existed for him and that he existed for you, because it almost makes when you win a championship even more. Mean more, I guess, because you've had to beat the very best in your eyes, someone who's really pushed you to the limit. And again, I'm sure the same would be said for him. Maybe we'll talk to Josh in the future about it. But yeah, he is a very strong competitor, that is for sure. But you both got 2 championships now in the PESC series. You've obviously won 4 GB championships, which is no one else has ever done that, right? I believe I don't think anyone's become a 2-time champion in that other than you, right? So that's pretty ridiculous. You've won the teams championship in the what was that? The Rennsport R1. I don't know what they change the name every week at this point.
EWC.
So, yeah, something, whatever it is. And which you won a bucket load of cash for as well. So what's next for you? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to continue just doing the same path, or is there something else for you?
I have thought of maybe going back to F1 Esports at some point, because I think when I did it, it wasn't done properly. We didn't have the right support and let's say infrastructure within the team to help me transition. So I never really figured out the driving style for that game. But with Redline involved, I think there's a much higher chance of me being able to do that. The problem is the scheduling is just terrible for me. It clashes so much with PESC, and that's always been my priority.
Are you a victim of your own success a little bit, do you think? Because you can transition to so many different games and compete that you could never really, well, not saying never really nail one. Obviously, you're the PESC champion, you've won the Rennsport stuff, but you have to spend a lot of time over so many different sims.
Yeah, I to be honest, I think transitioning between sims is one of the hardest things there is. I really struggle with it, but I put in the work and eventually get there. But it is like 90% of it is just so frustrating, because you just don't understand what you're doing wrong. You're driving how you think is natural, but this game requires something that is unnatural in order to extract grip from it. And so you end up having to change your driving style. It's like in Formula One, you have drivers say, "Oh, this car doesn't suit me." It's like that, but times 10, because they're having to change their driving style a little bit for a car. You're having to change your driving style for a whole new game, and it's brutal. And when you're doing that every 6 months, because I'm doing Rennsport iRacing, it does kind of mess up things a little bit. So for PESC this year, even though it didn't go so well, I think my pace was actually better than last year, and a lot of that is because I actually transitioned to iRacing a bit earlier due to just EWC being earlier in the year, so I could get started on PESC practice sooner. And so the first few rounds, my pace was actually better than last year, even though the results were worse. I think Mugello showed that, where the pace was really good. But because of this constantly swapping between games, you sometimes struggle to fully extract that until the later months. So it's, yeah, I think it is a little bit of what you say, suffering from that, because sometimes I don't want to be swapping games. I would love to just spend 3 years on iRacing and see how good I can get in all of the cars without actually swapping. Because for me, iRacing has the best physics at the moment, or the best feeling for the cars, and it feels the most natural to me. So whenever I go to Rennsport, it just ruins it for me. Like the driving style of iRacing, I just lose it completely. So I wouldn't mind just sticking with iRacing for a few years, but also that part of my brain is just tickling me because I never won F1 Esports, and I've won on iRacing. I've now won on Rennsport, but I went to F1 and I didn't win, so I kind of want to go back and do it properly. And now that we're with Redline, I feel we have the proper infrastructure to do that. Freddie and Jarno have both won the championship in the last 2 years, won the team's championship as well. So the it's there. It's just the scheduling doesn't work. So I would like to, if it becomes a possibility, but for now it doesn't seem like it.
No, absolutely fair enough. Right, this is what we really want to talk about. You drove an F1 car, Sebi. We know that. Obviously, the video was amazing. You know, whatever Red Bull, Oracle SimRacing, Red Bull. Never get those words in the right order. Produced in terms of video content, always amazing, and it was fantastic to see you. We were all excited. All of us boys at the Red Line were watching it together, and it was just meant to see you doing what you love. How was it for you, man? Like, I think the best thing for me was seeing the shock on the mechanic's face when you pulled away for the first time, and they were like, "Huh? Oh, he's done it!" Like, how was the whole experience for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of pressure because I think if I messed it up, it wouldn't look good for sim racing. This is meant to be one of the best that sim racing can give you. So for those mechanics, they're like, if I screw up, they're like, this is the best. So it was quite a bit of pressure, but also I really wanted to just enjoy it, and obviously I did. I mean, the problem is I don't really remember it too well now, but like the feeling of it, that's something you have for about a day and then it's gone because I don't know. At least for me, my memory's not that good, so I need to do it again. Clearly, uh, but it was. I just remember what I said, and I can sort of remember it, but not in the way that I did. I mean, it was a weird sensation because it's like this part of your brain is just telling you when you're accelerating, um, because the biggest shock of it, of course, is the cornering and the braking, but the part that was, let's say, hardest for my brain was the acceleration, because that's I don't know how to, like, you're going more to the danger zone by accelerating more and more, whereas when you're braking, you're saving yourself from being at high speed. And whereas for my brain, the fear side of it is like saying lift off, but obviously I don't want to do that because I was really enjoying it, and I know these cars are extremely safe, so there wasn't any fear, let's say, but there's still something in the back of my brain that's like, well, you need to lift off, this is ridiculous, what's going on here, but after 2 laps I was used to it, and it was feeling natural, but I mean, yeah, sim racing taught me everything for that, and it felt easier than a lot of other things I've driven. I can say that for sure. You know, at the end of the day, these cars are extremely well designed. It was, of course, on a very safe setup. You know, and it probably had lots of fuel. So it was not going to get much easier in that sense, but it was still like physically it was still quite demanding. And yeah, the main thing for me was just getting over that feeling of like my brain was like, what's going on? What's going on? Um, but once I got past that, it was so much fun. So easy to enjoy it, and it it's it's a bit like when I go and drive different games, I have to think, right, what am I doing here? Like, how's the car gonna behave? If I steer this much, is the car gonna spin? But with the F1 car, I don't need to worry about that too much because I know it's gonna behave as a normal car. It's a well-designed car. Whereas a lot of the time in sim racing, you have like bugged physics that just cause you to have to do weird things. But sim racing has taught me how to drive, so I could rely on that knowledge and just drive the F1 car very naturally and yeah, just really naturally. I just didn't have to think too much. So yeah, it was just awesome. Really, that's the best way to describe it.
What percentage would you say you were at in the car? You personally, like you just mentioned that heavy fuel setup, safe setup. Those are variables that you weren't in control of, right? So, in terms of you yourself in the car, you know, how hard did you push?
Oh, well, I would say I pushed, but I know I wasn't even close to the like driving well, let's say, because if we look at Snetterton, for example, even though I was pushing from the get-go, I still gained 3 seconds over the course of the day because I'm just not used to that sense of speed. So I would say I was probably pushing 90-95% in the F1 car, but I know my laps were still probably a couple seconds off pace. I got um, 9 laps, but it was a case of like do 1 lap pit, do 2 laps pit, do 1 lap pit, do 2 laps pit, something like that. So it wasn't very easy to get a momentum or like build any momentum going. So because of that, I couldn't get any sort of rhythm, harder to feel the car and so on, and make sure I improve every lap. So I think maybe that made things a little bit trickier, but I'd say I was still pushing like relatively hard. Uh, Probably 90, at least. Obviously, if I drove for more, I'd look back at those first laps and say, "Oh, I was only at 60%." But at the time, if I was to push harder, like the risk of spinning, of course, or crashing in some way is higher. So I felt like I was pretty close to pushing without taking any unnecessary risk. I mean, I said to like everyone before, like I'm not gonna sit my ass here. I want to enjoy it. And for me to enjoy it is to drive as fast as possible. So I did that just without risking any spins or lockup. Well, I think I did even have a lockup, but
Of course not.
I intentionally did that. Pardon?
Oh, I thought you said you didn't have a lockup.
No, no, no. I think I did.
Mate, the
Because I
fact
was
you
really
the
shocked
fact,
by
the fact you
how
only like
little.
sort of going on about maybe one that you might have had is crazy, by the way.
Well, the thing is, you can't brake as hard as you expect, but I think that's partly because of the setup they had on the car, the fact that the tires were like they didn't look very good. They were in a rough state, and were obviously on very high fuel. Uh, so I think because of that, I couldn't actually brake as hard as I was expecting. I was like training at home to brake really hard, to be kicking the brake pedal almost. And I did that in, I think it was the Formula Renault, and I just instantly locked up. So yeah, I think I have one lock up into T2 or T3, whatever you want to call it. But on the downhill braking zone, I wouldn't take as much risk because there's actually gravel at the end of it, so I didn't want to be an idiot and look and end up in the gravel. Whereas T3, it's just a runoff if you lock up.
It's crazy though, mate. You think this? I don't think this would be understated here. That maybe only 20% of drivers who make it all the way through to Formula 2 will end up ever doing either a test session or drive a Formula 1 car. That, if you think about it, some seasons no F2 driver even makes it to Formula 1. So, you know, then you look at the drivers that maybe do a FP1 session or, you know, during the season, and you manage to get into a Formula 1 car, mate. That is some achievement.
Yeah, I'm a very, very lucky guy, and I will be remembering that for a long time. Not many people can say they've driven an F1 car. Certainly not these, like a proper. So I know there's I think sometimes you can pay for an experience, but it's not quite the same, is it? Whereas this is it feels like I've earned it, and yeah, it's yeah, very, very grateful to everyone at Red Bull for allowing me that, because yeah, like you say, not many people get to do that. Certainly when I started, 12 years ago, not a chance I would have imagined that. I was looking at Gregor Hutu and thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to even think of racing in that series. And then 12 years later, the car that I watched him racing was kind of, it would have been a similar era to the car I drove. It's like that kind of era of Formula 1 cars. Obviously, they were driving the Williams, but 12 years later, I'm driving one of them for real. It's absolutely mental. I never would have expected it.
Well, Gregor was one of the pioneers of sim racing, wasn't he? And, you know, someone you obviously looked up to. And ironically, you've become a pioneer for other people. There'll be people looking at what you're doing right now, and you know, maybe in 10 years' time, telling the story of I watched Sebi do this, and then I, got to do this because of that. So, yeah, it's quite remarkable how these things work out. Right, let's talk about. We're going to talk about the Expo in a minute, actually, from last year. But first of all, I've got two Mount Rushmores for you. We'll make it easy. We'll take you can't mention yourself or me. I'm not allowed to be mentioned either. So we'll talk about your Mount Rushmore of all time. Like since you started competing, 2014, 15. And then we'll talk about the Mount Rushmore of your current people you're racing against now. And it could cross over. So, I expect there's going to be at least one name that will cross over to both of them. But let's do the all-time first.
It's a shame I can't mention you, though. I would have been the first name on both lists, mate.
I don't make the rules, but, they did say that it wouldn't be fair, to be fair.
Oh, it's understandable. So, firstly would be Gregor Hutu. For the well, since I started competing, Gregor Hutu, Martin Kroenke, probably Brendan Lee, although he obviously struggled a bit more in the later years, but he was very dominant. And I'd say Freddie Rasmussen. He was always absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I learned a lot from Freddie as a teammate. So even though I'm not sure. Yeah, no, that works actually. If it's from when I started to now, then yeah. And then for recent, it would be Rogers, Freddie again. Probably Jarno, although I haven't really competed against Jarno too much, but I mean, I've got a lot of respect for his like how he races. It's fascinating to watch because I was helping out a little bit earlier in the season with F1 and kind of analyzing his races to try and help the guys out, and it's really quite fascinating to see how he drives. Very smart guy. So yeah, that's that 3. Who've I said?
You said, oh god, crikey!
I said
I've forgotten.
Rogers.
Yeah, Rogers.
Freddie, Jarno.
Freddie and Jarno. Yeah, those are the 3. So Freddie's the only one that's gone from across both.
I think I'd say Kevin Siggy.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
Because he is just he's cooking whatever he does. I would really love to do some R Factor with Kevin. I'm kind of waiting for another competition. Like I did the 24 hours of Le Mans on R Factor 1 year, and I loved it. It was so much fun prepping for it, but we didn't have as good of a R Factor team as Redline would have, and I'd love to do one with Redline, or in collaboration with Redline. I think that would be so much fun. I love driving R Factor, and it's been a long time since we've done a competition on it. So, yeah, I think that's my 4. I'm pretty happy with that.
That's mate. They're both brilliant. Yeah, no, I think that's what we're missing really in sim racing is an endurance championship like the Le Mans Virtual. I think everybody in the whole of sim racing will agree with that. It was a fun competition to watch, take part in, or for you guys, I'm assuming it's fun to take part in. But yeah, it's just the one thing that was easy to follow, and basically every name in sim racing, to a certain extent, every name in motorsport was involved, right? So it was fantastic. Right, let's just briefly. We've been here 45 minutes now. It's the longest podcast we've had so far, by the way.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No worries, mate. This is perfect. So let's talk about the Expo. Before I talk about you at the Expo, because you were a witness to this, and this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, is that guy that went up to Freddie and picked up the picture of Freddie and looked at the picture, looked at Freddie. Freddie looks at him. He looks back down, looks at Freddie, and it's very clear that he recognises it's Freddie on the picture, then just puts the picture down, asks where the toilet is, and then walks off. That might be the...
So it's like, no, I'm good.
That was the... So, can you confirm that happened?
It did, yeah. It was so funny.
Oh, I was crying with laughter. I had to walk away because I was just laughing.
He looked at Freddie like, no, I don't want your car.
In fact, he checked it twice, like, oh no, that is him. No, I'm good.
I think he'd seen other people take them as well. It's like,
yeah. Oh.
It's like, oh, yeah, that is the guy. I don't know who he is. I'm alright.
That was like the most awkward thing. Yeah, where's the toilet to? I was just crying with laughter. That's one of my favourite moments ever at the Expo, to be honest. But what was it like for you? Because obviously you were there doing signings and stuff, and it must be quite weird now because you must get recognised pretty much all of the events you go to now in sim racing because it's a sim racing specific audience. But it must be quite strange being recognised.
Yeah, it is. I think I had it in another competition the year before, and it was really weird. Like I had people queuing up to take pictures with me, and I was like, "What's going on here?" I've not had this before. But no, Sim Expo was awesome. Actually, I was really surprised by how many people were there to come and speak with us. Actually, I've not been to Sim Expo until then for years. So long that the last time I'd been was when it was at the Nürburgring.
Bit different now, isn't it?
And yeah, it's massive. It's so much going on. I couldn't believe it. Unfortunately, I was only there for 1 day, so I didn't really get to look around too much. But I had a really good time, and I would like to be there again this year, hopefully, and hopefully actually able to look around, because that was the biggest shame was we were there, but because we were on a tight schedule, we didn't get to look around too much, but definitely very impressed by it.
We'll have to get you and the Red Bull team on stage and talk about the year or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I'm definitely up for that.
Wonderful. Right, well, we'll wrap it up there, Sebi. It's a really good conversation, mate. Where can people find you on the socials? I know you're such a social butterfly on all of these platforms, so they're going to get so much information about you. But on the off chance you do post something, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's I think it's Sebastian Job _ I think. See, that's how good I am at it. I'm pretty sure it's just at Sebastian Job _ or at Sebastian _Job. It's one of the two. Yeah, it's one of my aims for this year is to be a bit better at posting stuff. So do go and follow. Maybe I will post a bit more. I'm gonna try. So yeah.
Yeah, we will post all the links below anyway, so it's all good. Thank you, Sebi. Really do appreciate your time, mate. And maybe we'll see you at the Expo later in the year. For people who've been watching today, though, if you did enjoy it, please leave a like, of course. Leave a comment below. Let us know who you want to see on the next podcast. And I guess we'll just see you then. Take care.